Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a DFS preview for the 2021 WGC Workday Championship. Now, if that sounds a little bit odd to you, that's because it's a new title. But this tournament is the same one that was formerly known as the WGC Mexico Championship, as well as the WGC Cadillac Championship. I think the tournament committee wanted, or I should say, they didn't want this tournament to be held in Mexico without fans, so it is using this venue in Florida as a substitute venue. It will return back to Mexico, but I think for this year at least, it's going to be playing in Florida. I'm not sure if they're going back there next year, but I think that's what it is. Just wanted to give you that little piece of information. That's kind of why, the reason for the change. In this preview video, though, I'm going to be discussing the tournament. We'll look at like kind of overview of everything, and then kind of breaking down the buckets as well as course history and recent form, trying to find our best plays. So you can find timestamps in the description. Also, chapter mode's enabled, so the progress bar is cut up into segments. If you hover over them, you'll see which segment is what. I want to start with the tournament fact sheets. This is a great source of information, especially for a new golf course like this is. This course has not been played on the PGA Tour yet. It was the host of the 2015 NCAA Championships, where Bryson DeChambeau beat C.T. Pan, for those that are wondering. For me, that information's interesting, but I'm not going to use it in my research here. It might be something. No, I'm not going to look at it. I don't think it's important. That was in 2015. A lot of things have changed since then. And plus, this tournament's going to be set up a lot different than it did back then. The cute story behind this is the Concession Golf Club. I actually forgot to mention that, but the reason it was named that is because Jack Nicklaus, who is the course architect with Tony Jacklin, they once played in a Ryder Cup match together. And it was the first ever time the Ryder Cup was ended in a tie, where there was no quote unquote winner. If it does end in a tie, the team that won the year before technically retains their Ryder Cup, and they actually, I think, technically win that Ryder Cup as well. But either way, Jack Nicklaus conceded a putt to Tony Jacklin on the last hole. It was a super short putt, and just gave it to him instead of trying to see, whether or not he misses it or not. So that was very shocking back then. That's why this golf course is called the Concession. Those two, again, they work together. It's only fitting, and it's a cute story. But it is being played in Bradenton, Florida. That is just south of Tampa Bay. It's a suburb of Tampa Bay, I'm pretty sure. I think it's like the Oakland to San Francisco, as is the Tampa Bay to whatever. You know how that is. I know I butchered that, but it is the Oakland. Yeah, we're just going to stop. Either way, just south of Tampa. But let's go on with the rest of the stats. It's a par 72, 7,400 yards. The stimp's going to be running at a 12. That's all pretty much standard. To me, I think that's like your average PGA Tour golf course, especially for a par 72. It's not super long. It's not short. Yeah, it's good. Looking at the course statistics, you see 6,000 square feet. Last week, it was 7,500 at the Genesis, or I should say the Riviera Country Club. The week before that at Pebble, it was 3,500 square feet. So you can kind of see it. It's a little bit different, but this is basically right in the middle. The really eye-popping thing is how many holes where water is in play. 12. There are 13 water hazards, 12 holes where water comes into play. Normally, by the way, this is a no-cut event. But normally, if there was a cut event, I would probably say be wary of golfers who spray the golf ball. But since this is a no-cut event, I think you're going to be okay. We want birdie makers. Double bogeys aren't going to hurt us. Triple bogeys really aren't going to hurt us. It will hurt finishing position, but if we can, if these golfers can mitigate that by getting a lot of birdies, more birdies more birdies in the long run will offset the finishing position. And so I think everyone's in play, but I would say take a little bit of take a little risk. Grab some of those golfers that you might not normally do, who have good scoring potential. We are on Bermuda grass. Now, I had a conversation with someone earlier on Twitter today where we're not positive this is complete pure Bermuda. You need around 75 degrees average temperature for Bermuda to grow. When I looked at the monthly temperatures, especially for January and earlier this month, I didn't see anything that averaged close to 70. I think it was in the 60s, which means Bermuda grass can still survive, but it doesn't really grow. Like, it's not optimal growth weather. Now, I know there are, fertilizers and stuff like that out there that probably accelerate growth, and they don't require as much warmth, but I don't know how much. So I don't know if this is pure Bermuda. I did reach out to the superintendent to see, if he would respond. First of all, I'm not sure if he would. He hasn't yet. But either way, I'm not sure. I'm still going to look at Bermuda stats. I think it's definitely worthwhile, especially if there is any remnants of Bermuda, if it isn't 100% Bermuda. But yeah, all Bermuda grass. Go ahead, go heavy with your Bermuda stats. If it wasn't and it was overseeded, you'd be wanting to look at ryegrass or POA most likely. Here's the course was named 2-foot putt, so super short putt. Yeah, that is the tournament fact sheets. I just want to add a couple pieces here. Again, no cut, so 72 holes will be played for all the golfers. We have 73 golfers in the field, so a very limited field. And there hasn't been any withdrawals as of 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. Let's go ahead and get into the next piece, which actually, let's look at weather. This is your 10-day weather forecast. Now, last week when we did this, I had mentioned, the weather looked pretty benign. There were 20-mile-an-hour winds, and I didn't think that was going to be that big of a deal, but that's your average, wind, where gusts can go up to 30, whatever. We saw chaos on Saturday. Golf balls weren't staying on the green. They were being affected as they land. They're also affected in the air, obviously. But yeah, 20 degrees was a big deal. However, this week looks like perfect weather conditions. Near the 80s, very little wind. It's kind of a scorer's paradise, really, when it comes to temperature and just all around weather. So I can kind of say, first of all, come back on Wednesday, or not so much come back. Look on Wednesday to see if anything has changed. If winds do pick up, well, actually, if winds do pick up, you'd want to find your grinded out golfer, those that do play well in the wind, if you can find wind stats. Otherwise, other than that, just leave it alone. I almost wanted to say there was an AM/PM stack, but there isn't. With this limited field, I think even if everyone went off a hole 1, which I'm pretty sure they're going to still split them between holes 1 and 10. I could be wrong, but it only takes 2 hours to get through, to get everyone out. So there's only going to be a 2-hour gap difference between the first golfer off on the golf course and the last one to get to tee off. So definitely tee time splits aren't going to be a big deal here. Let's go ahead and get into historical salaries. I would actually talk about target score, but because it's a different golf course, and we've had several different golf courses with different results. If you look at Doral, you see Tiger won it in 2013 at 19 under, but there were a lot of other low scores. From there on, it was pretty high scoring, as in closer to even. And then once we look at, Chapultepec, everything was between 14 and 20. I'm not sure what concession's going to be. I heard it's a very tough track, so we could probably see a target score maybe around 12, but I don't think it's really necessary to come up with a target score. I think your best golfers are going to do well here, and that actually leads me into historical salaries. The reason that I am still going to look at historical salaries, despite this being a different golf course, is because every golfer coming here, this tournament matters. There's a lot of FedEx Cup points on the line. There are a lot of official World Golf Ranking points on the line. And those matter because all of the invitationals out there, I think one of the criteria is being inside the top 50. So if you're inside the top 50, you get an automatic invite. Those that don't have to find invites elsewhere, and there are always, different sponsor type of either exemptions or whatever. But yeah, it does matter to these golfers. So they will be showing up and trying to play. We've seen in the past where some golfers show up and then withdraw on the first hole just to get that juicy paycheck. I think like last place gets $100,000 or something like that. But I don't think there's really anything to worry about with some of these guys. I guess if there was, it'd be your top guys that aren't that enthused but just want to show up and make a paycheck. But all your guys hovering around that 50 in the official World Golf ranking, they're going to want to do well here in order to retain that ranking or even boost it. So therefore, I think salaries are still going to matter. I think tournament history is still going to matter. Regardless of there not being a golf, any course history, we still want to look at the tournament history for this WGC event as well as other stroke play WGC events. Because, first of all, the best golfers are here, and they're going to have good results regardless because they're good golfers. But still, finding maybe the diamond in the rough, you could find them through tournament history, and we'll look at that a little bit later. But looking at historical salaries, I did add a new column, top 5. Basically how this reads is everything in this column, you just look to the right for under these columns. You can see the average salary for the winner, average salary for the minimum price. I think that's kind of a pointless stat now that I think of it. Oh, no. I'm sorry. It's the minimum salary of a winner. I don't know why I thought it was average, but then your maximum for a winner was $12,500. You can kind of see the rest of the information here. I don't think it's that important. I really like to look at this information here. These are all your salary ranges, so kind of the buckets for salaries. You can see where the winners come from, but more importantly, the top 5s and top 10s. And this percentage over here is of the top 10s. So basically how it reads, 15.91% of top 10s fell in the 11K and above salary range. That's exactly what this looks like. This is comparing this number to the rest of them in this column. So you can see the best range, or the range that shows up the most inside the top 10 is the 7 to 8K range. Now we can go a little bit, a few layers deeper here and look at, of all golfers inside each of those buckets, what is their top 5% frequency? What is their top 10% frequency? You can see 55.5% for 11K and above. It's pretty good. This should give you a lot of confidence to select, the favorite golfer in the field, or one of the favorite golfers. I think we have 2 that are above 11K, DJ and Rahm. I think either one of them it's going to be good anchoring your lineups around them. When we look at the rest of the fields, you can find a little bit more confidence in your 8 to 9K, or actually really 8 to 10K, not going over 10K, but everyone in the 8K range, everyone in the 9K range. A pretty good chunk fall inside the top 10. Not a lot of golfers fit inside that, or in those buckets. Surprisingly, the 10 to 11K doesn't really, it doesn't look like it performs that well. Obviously, that can change there, and we'll go through a little bit more of this when we look at optimal lineups, but you can see how difficult it is going to be, or how easy it's going to be selecting golfers from each range. Looking at below 7K, 4.49% of golfers in that price range finish inside the top 10. That's not a good number. That's really trying to find a needle in the haystack. But, when we look at the numbers up here, it's going to kind of prove that you're going to need some of these guys. Maybe not so much in the 6K, but definitely the 7K. And it's a decent percentage of finding the top 10. The information you see here, basically your top salaries in each inside the top 10, as well as the top 5. One that really kind of points out is 11.5. So that's usually the highest salary each year. 3. The count is 3 inside the top 5. And really, I can show you what a lot of that, these are all the salaries going back to 2017. I'm looking at everyone above 11K. You can see it has 100% frequency finishing inside the top 5. I say don't worry about, getting cute with your lineups. anchor one of your guys with an 11K golfer and move forward with it. And that leads me to the optimal lineups. Now, looking from 2017 to 2020, we're just going to go through and look at what the optimal lineup was and maybe a secondary lineup to go with it. So in 2017, you see Dustin Johnson at 12.5. He was in the optimal lineup. If you're using DJ, you had to use 2 golfers in the 7K range, 1 in the 6, 1 in the 9. And that ended up shaking out to be $49,600 that you would have to use for salary. Usually when you look at something like this, I shouldn't say like this, but if you were not to use like that 12K golfer, you would have been, actually this ends up being $4,900 using Rory at 10.9. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of a difference. You can select these golfers. And I totally missed out. I spaced out. You needed JB Holmes down here at 6K. So you need a 12, 2 7s, a 9, and 2 6s. Or the alternate lineup would have used $49,900 using a 10K golfer, really close to 11, but using those same golfers, just substituting out JB and DJ for Rory at 10.9 and JT at 8.7, which is crazy to think that JT was once 8.7. But either way, that was 2017, 2018. Your optimal lineup was 9.3, 7, 8.6, 7.3, and 8K, and 7K. You would have left $2,100 on the table. Now, my argument is this. You could certainly try, and I am one that is consistently, like I'm going to continue to hunt for that optimal lineup. Like I'm going to try to figure it out. I'm going to say this as well. I'm not leaving $2,100 on the table that often. I might every once in a while, like if I'm creating 100 lineups, I might do it once or twice, but I'm not actively trying to leave money on the table because you could easily get to a lineup that's very close to that, within that salary. I think the best example I actually have is in 2019. No, 2020. Let me just show you 2020s first, because I'm on this explanation. In 2020, you could have left $1,200 on the table, and you would have went with 84, 9, 10, 6, 6, 6, 7, 4, and 6, 8. That would have left $1,200 on the table, but you could actually, substitute out your 6.8 for a 7.9 golfer, get closer to that 50,000 salary cap, and what would have ended up happening is you would have scored 686 points doing it this way. The optimal lineup scored 691. So there was a 5-point difference. That 5-point difference was $1,000. Now, I don't think you need to get cute. Really, you don't necessarily need to get super cute with your lineups. But, we're going to go over the bucket system and, look at course history and recent form. If, say, Abraham Ancer and Sebastian Munoz were the same type of golfer, whether they fell under the same bucket of last year, last week, or whatever, that's a good substitute. But if I'm just trying to actively, find a needle in a haystack and leave $1,200 on the table, I don't know if that's a really good idea. But looking at 2019, the optimal lineup used an 11K golfer, 8.6, 7.9, 6.7, 7.4, and 7.3. So 3 guys in the 7K range, 1 in the 6, 1 in the 8.6. And the winning GPP lineup there used an 11K golfer. Then it went 7, 2 8s, a 6, and a 7. So very, very similar. It's just a different 8K golfer, not using Paul Casey, instead using Patrick Cantlay. And that was $50,000. You couldn't use Casey, that's why. So even that year in 2019, optimal lineup left $600 on the table. The winning lineup actually left no money on the table. So another reason why you don't have to get cute, at least not actively. Again, if you find there to be a nice, substitute from one to another and it leaves $1,200 on the table, I have no issue with that. But if you're trying to actively, just leave $1,200 on the table, probably not the best route to go. Okay, that's your optimal lineups, your historical salaries. Let's go ahead and get into the bucket system. Now, if you're with me, if you've been here before, you know what this is. If not, I'll link a video, top right-hand corner. That'll explain what the bucket system is. Basically, the quick shakedown of it is I analyze the top 10 of every single tournament dating back to the time I started recording data, which was 2013. And I'm basically looking at their last year finishing position at that tournament, as well as their last week, the year or the week before, and also recent form and course history, which I will explain a little bit later here. But what you need to know, I use the top 10. This table here, these tables here that you see, I use this as my ranking mechanism when it comes to golfers on the DK page, which we'll be discussing tomorrow mostly with the strategy video. But it's really just capturing the frequency that a golfer finishes inside any of these ranges. So my ranges here, 1 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, so on and so forth. Every 20 places is a range. And depending on how a golfer does, they fit in those ranges. I total them all up to see which range actually ranks out the best, and that's where we come up with the bucket score. So your bucket 1 score are golfers who finished top 20 the year before. And you can see what the min-max is, like at least three golfers every single year have finished inside the top 10 with this bucket score. Versus the rest of the top 10, that's this number divided into the total of these, that's 43%. So nearly half of top 10s fall in that range. And if you wanted to look at all the golfers within that field or within that bucket throughout all of these, or from all the years from 2020 to 2013, you can see what the frequency number is. So of the last year bucket 1 golfers, 30% of all last year bucket 1 golfers finished inside the top 10. That's how this reads. So you can see it's a very confident bucket. It's definitely one you want to choose. If you wanted to see a little bit layer deeper, here are all the totals of the golfers. And you can see what, basically all of them totaled up together, what the percentages of the field. So nearly 20% of the field falls usually in that bucket. You can see what the average is. It's 15.71. This year we have 19 golfers in that bucket. So pretty good chance we're going to see at least 3 golfers inside the top 10. You can make the argument if you're going to see 4 or 5. Like, I think we could probably do that. The only caveat that I would have with that is those all could be golfers, 9K and above. Meaning, even if we do have like 4 or 5 of them inside the top 10, you might only be able to roster 2 of them. But really what it should do is provide you a little bit more confidence to, play one of those golfers, especially anyone that's 11K and above. So it kind of comes full circle. Our best last week bucket are golfers who actually did not play the week before. And it's kind of overwhelming. That's nearly 50% of the top 10 golfers who didn't play the week before. Unfortunately, this also includes golfers who did play any other event other than the PGA Tour, because I don't record Eurostats. I don't record, I'm sure no one is here from the Korn Ferry Tour, but like say the Japanese Tour or anything like that. If anyone's coming over here from there that played last week, it's unfortunately throwing them into this bucket. So this is where you're going to find most of your international golfers, more than likely. But some are just... Actually, I can't say that with full confidence, so I'm not going to. I was about to say some are actual golfers who did not play the week before because they don't have PGA status or whatever. But then I thought, I wouldn't know because I'm not looking at the Euro Tour. So scratch that. But either way, you can see, but the only caveat to this is that that bucket has 253 golfers over the last 7 years. 8 years. That is nearly 4 times more than any of the other buckets. So actually it is, it's about 4 times. 50% of the field, of all fields every single year, consisted of these golfers who did not play the week before. So really trying to find them, it's still a good mark, 14%. That's not terrible. The easier one would be golfers who finished top 20 last week. But it's pretty mixed. You could select any of them. It's a very rounded, what am I trying to think of? I'm just going to leave it very rounded. unlike here, you know, it would be best to pepper golfers who finished top 20 last year at this tournament. This really doesn't give an indication of really which bucket is the best, you know, based off of the overall numbers. I'll leave it up to you to decide. Oh, you can't even see. My head's in the way. There you go. 21%. Again, for that range, 14, 18, 17. It's very close to each other. So the other thing I like to look at when it comes to the bucket system is what is new from last week, or maybe the week before. Time goes by fast. I can't remember. Looking at course history and recent form. So now this actually would be tournament history for this exact tournament because of how much it's, you know, kind of flipping between golf courses. But I think it's still very useful to use because, like I had mentioned earlier in this video, your top golfers are coming to this event and it matters to them to play well. So we're seeing a lot of the same guys show up here, and the same guys usually perform well here. So I think course history is going to matter, as is recent form. So again, with the course history, recent form, with these bucket systems, I throw whatever their average finishing position is for from 2014 until present day. I throw those into the ranges as well. So you can see that over here, 1 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, so on and so forth. And again, I do a frequency, basically, and rank them based off that frequency. Your number one course history bucket, golfers who finish top 20 at this tournament. Like that have an average finishing position of 0 to 20. Which should come to no surprise. Again, you're getting the best golfers here. So if you're going to fade any of those guys that are at the top of the salary leaderboard that have really good tournament history, it has to be from some other kind of leverage play, because it is definitely more beneficial to choose from there. You know, of everybody in that bucket throughout the last 6 years, nearly 50% finished inside the top 10. Or actually, this is 50% of top 10s have this bucket. Nearly 30% of everyone in that bucket finishes inside the top 10. So this is basically your top 10 percentage. This is the versus top 10. I should actually have it switched around so it's easier for you guys to understand. But yeah, this bucket, definitely the best one to choose from. Your second bucket would be the 20 to 40 range. And then the third ones did not play. So that have absolutely no course history. And that's what that should actually say. No course history. When we come down to recent form, your number one bucket are those that finish in between that 20 to 40. Now, recent form every single year, for every single tournament, I only look back at the last 7 events prior to that event. So it's really looking at the last 8 weeks, or the last 8 weeks, but really the last 7 events, and creating an average finishing position for those recent forms. Now, I tally up what those recent forms are inside the top 10, put them in these ranges like I've said before, and rank them. Your number one, that 20 to 40 range, pretty decent numbers. You know, it consists of 30% of the top 10. 22% of that field finishes inside the top 10. The next one would be, you know, with that frequency rating, would be golfers that had the 1 to 20 recent form average, but your number 2 bucket is actually the 40 to 60, and that's primarily because there have been 2 more golfers that have shown up inside the top 10 than the 1 to 20. But it should come to no surprise. I like using the min maxes as a way to determine how much you should play of somebody. So what it's saying is don't play more than 4 golfers that have a recent form average of 1 to 20. But you want to play at least 1. Likewise, don't play more than 5 golfers between that 20 to 40 recent form average, but at least play 2 of them. So that's kind of what this is shaking out to be. And of course, you can see the totals here. Pretty even, you know, considering, but it is a limited field event. It has been since I've started capturing data in 2013. I don't think there's really anything to get cute with this, but it is good to know that you should kind of mix it up, you know, between these buckets. Now, you could make lineups with nothing but golfers who had a recent form between 1 to 20 and 20 to 40, as long as you keep that max kind of rule in play. Totally up to you guys. But obviously you can see what the minimums are. I like using the minimums more than I like to use the maximums, but this kind of gives me a ceiling in a way. Okay, so that was the bucket system for this tournament. Let's go ahead, look at really, course history and recent form. So we'll go ahead and go to tournament history. And I have this sorted by golfers who are playing in the event this week and by their average finishing position. Now, there are a bunch of other pieces of information here. I think we could probably go ahead and hide these two columns because we're not in Mexico and we're not at Doral. So you can see events played, best finish, worst finish, top 10s, and 10%. You can see with the average finishing position, I'm not really going to talk about a lot of these golfers, but it's led by Rory McIlroy and Tyrrell Hatton. DJ is up there as well with a ton of wins, with a bad 48th place finish last year. If we remove that, he has the best tournament history by far. Again, 2019 to 2017, or 2020 to 2017 were played in Mexico. 2016 to 2013 was played in Florida. So maybe if you want to use that as a comp, all more power to you. Looking at, usually I would talk about like the most top 10s, but let's go look at the top 10 percentage for course history and remove golfers who have none. So the best, golfer who has, or I should say the golfer that has the best top 10 percentage for this tournament is Rory McIlroy. And he did play pretty terribly last week. But if there was ever a reason to maybe play him, Rory probably cares about this event more than most people, know about him. 6 top 10s, 85.71%. That's pretty good. JT right behind him at 80% with 4 top 10s. Tyrrell Hatton, Dustin Johnson, and hey, Harris English, who could be your best value play. Only has done this 2 times, but a 10th place and a 16th place. That's decent, especially for what his price tag is at 50%. Now, your golfers who have the worst percentage that have at least played, should we look at golfers who've played this at least more than once? Believe it or not, Xander Schauffele, holy moly, 0% top 10s over the last 3 events. That's weird to see. Same with Daniel Berger. Now, I think Berger's game has evolved since 2018, but hey, that's also good to know. And then you can see, top 10 Tony. He nothing better than 25th place. So interesting information to digest. Let's go ahead and just look at recent forms really quickly. Actually, no. Let's go to Grass Stats. Why not? Now we're on Bermuda, so I do have Bermuda events, and I know this says POA, but really it's supposed to say Bermuda. Your best Bermuda golfer in the field is DJ. You can see the rest of them on the screen. I'm going to scroll over just a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. Here's basically your top 20 of Bermuda golfers. I'm not going to talk really about anybody. You can see even Christian Bezuidenhout has decent, probably the best value play, $7,100. Kuchar's at $6,400, and he's inside probably the top 10, I'm guessing. Yeah, he's 10th place. He's ahead of JT when it comes to Bermuda. Now, do I think he's going to play better than JT? No, I don't think so. Top 10 Bermuda, top 10% on Bermuda tracks. Colin Morikawa, 10 events, 50% shows up inside the top 10. At $9,000, that's not a bad play. Rory shows up also 50%. He's played 30 events. He's at 10-4. And then Jon Rahm, 50% as well. I really like Jon Rahm this week, but I can't fault you if you want to play really Rory, JT, or even Dustin Johnson. I might go with like a Rahm Fleetwood lineup. I for whatever reason, I have some good feelings about Fleetwood this week. Yeah, 42.11%. That's pretty good. And then really your value plays, I guess, would be Sergio, Justin Rose, maybe even Jason Day. I probably would stay away from that, but Kevin Kisner's there as well. I'm not going to look at 2021 Bermuda. I think we only have 4 events this year, or maybe even 3. And most of these guys have only probably played it once. So we won't really go there. Let me go ahead and put a freeze on this. You can see what the bucket scores are for some of these guys over here. Actually, I'll bring that up at the end of here. But looking at recent form, I know we kind of went through the buckets already, but again, kind of what we were talking about, you know, looking at kind of the rules, you know, 1 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60. If we were kind of go by that, you know, we have 12 golfers who are in that 0 to 20 range. The minimum was 1, the maximum was 4. There are a lot of good golfers in this range. I like Jon Rahm the most. If I'm going to go from there, I mean, I don't mind like Hovland or even Joaquin Niemann at $8,100. That's a really good value. Maybe even Matthew Fitzpatrick. But let's see, what's Matthew Fitzpatrick's Bermuda stats? Not good. 17% showing up inside the top 10, though. So that actually is pretty decent. One guy I probably will be fading is Max Homa, 3.7% top 10. My rule of thumb has always been 6, but it used to be 7. And after last week, I think I'm going to change it to 5. So anybody above 5% to me is a decent play. I'll avoid anyone who is lower than 5%, including a Will Zalatoris. But yeah, picking 1 to 4 golfers in here, I can tell you right now, I'm probably only going to pick somewhere between 2 and 3. I mean, I don't think I would ever want to put any of these guys together. The bucket scores don't really look great for most of these guys. I'm definitely not playing more than, we'll see. I don't want to say any definitive thing, but you know, it's going to be somewhere between 2 and 3 max in a lineup out of this range. 20 to 40, Webb Simpson shows up in this, and this one is only 13 deep. And there are some interesting names like Justin Thomas, Carlos Ortiz, Lonto Griffin. I mean, I think he's probably the best value play. You know, you want to play Lonto when he's under 7K. It usually comes up with some good results. Now, I don't know what his Bermuda stats are. Not great. 10%, top 10 percentage for Bermuda. So that's not terrible, but yeah, I don't know about that. Rory's down here. I guess if you needed a reason to pick between Rory and Justin Thomas, this is probably it. You know, this was actually your number 1 range when it came to recent form. So picking somewhere between 2 and 5. I had already said that I'm probably not playing Zalatoris. I most likely am going to play Sungjae Im. I think that's a no-brainer. But man, can we even get to 2 to 5 on this? Either way, we'll see. And then the next range, which would be the next best range. A few more golfers here. We have 16 in this one, and this was also a 1 to 4. I like Billy Horschel. Scotty Scheffler, I don't mind. Bryson's actually in this range. That might be a reason for me to fade him. I mean, I might play a handful of Bryson lineups, but if I'm creating 100, this is a good reason to play just, 5 to 10. Not even 10, maybe just 5 for FOMO reasons, but a good reason to actually not play Bryson, in my opinion. Brooks even shows up here. So if you have to decide between Brooks and Bryson, this is a good way to start. And then here are your other golfers. Not very good recent form here. Includes Cameron Champ, Bubba Watson, Matt Kuchar, and then golfers who did not play. So this is, that have not played. Can't remember what this bucket one. This is bucket 4. I don't know. It's a toss up. I would go through all of the buckets, but I think we can save that for tomorrow's video, for the strategy video. I don't remember. I think I said I was going to do something, but I totally forgot what it was. I think actually I'm just going to leave it there. Kind of gave a little rundown on the recent form. If you wanted to do course history bucket, sure, we'll do that. We'll go through course history bucket really quick. We want to look at our rules here. Minimum of 3 to 6 for the course history 1 buckets, or tournament history, I should say, and no other mins for anyone else. And somewhere between 3 and 4 for the other buckets, the decent buckets. So not including 5 or 5 or 6. So out of this range, we want to find somewhere between 3 and 6. You have Rory up there, so now he kind of fits those 2 buckets. He is actually a 1 for recent form bucket and a 1 for course history bucket. That's pretty decent. Tyrrell Hatton's here. He's a 4 when it comes to recent form bucket. Maybe a really good reason to play both Rory and Tyrrell Hatton together. But yeah, you can see the rest of the guys in these range. Again, it's somewhere between 3 and 6 that you want to select, a minimum of 3. Coming down here, this range is actually very large, 20 to 40. That consists of 27 golfers. So I'm guessing we're going to see, 2 or 3 of these guys inside the top 10 as well, maybe even more, because this is a kind of a large range relative to the rest of the field. And I can't remember, what were the golfers who had no course history? That was your bucket 3. And this one is not as large, but I guess everyone is a last year too, if they, it makes sense. If I was selecting a golfer from here, I think it might be best to select your golfer who might be the international golfer in the 6K range, if you wanted to go that route. There's also golfers I think you can just easily avoid. Maybe not Sami Välimäki. I think he's been playing decent golf. He's really young. But yeah, these are kind of your swing for the fence guys. Maybe not these guys up here, but definitely your 6K range. But either way, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. 41 minutes into this. That's not terrible. I do want these to get a little shorter over the time, or over time, just to make it a little easier to follow and quicker to digest. So with that, I'm going to bid adieu. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the strategy video tomorrow. All right, bye.